How does a simple confession about sharing a bed with my best friend turn into the moment my husband serves me divorce papers, right in front of my new boss? What started as a harmless white lie became the last straw that broke us apart, and now everyone's asking, was I really left with no choice, or did I choose this ending myself? The apartment felt suffocating as I stood in our kitchen, watching Jonas methodically clean the dinner dishes. His movements were precise, controlled, the same way he graded papers or organized his lesson plans. Everything about my husband screamed routine, predictability, safety. Sometimes I wondered if that's all we'd become. So, I began, leaning against the granite countertop we'd picked out 3 years ago, when we still talked about renovating the whole place. I need to tell you something about last night. Jonas paused, a plate halfway to the drying rack. His dark eyes met mine through his wire-rimmed glasses. At 36, he still looked like the earnest graduate student I'd fallen for, all sharp cheekbones and careful consideration. "About your work emergency," he asked, setting the plate down gently. My stomach twisted. The work emergency. Right. That's what I'd told him when I called at 9 p.m., explaining I'd be staying late to handle a server crisis. Technically, there had been a server issue. Technically, I had stayed late. But technically, wasn't the whole truth. Well, yes and no. I tucked a strand of auburn hair behind my ear, a nervous habit Jonas had learned to recognize over our 12 years together. The servers were fine by midnight, but I was exhausted. Mira offered to let me crash at her place since it's closer to the office. Jonas's hand stilled completely. "You stayed at Mira's." "Just to sleep," I said quickly. I was dead tired, and you know how bad traffic is in the morning from here. It made sense. "You stayed at Mira's," he repeated, his voice flat. "Jonas, don't make this weird. We're best friends. It's not like, did you share a bed?" The question hung in the air like smoke. I could lie. I should lie. But something in his expression told me he already knew or suspected, and lying would only make it worse. "Her couch is broken," I said. "The springs are shot. I would have gotten no sleep at all." "So you shared her bed?" "We're both adults, Jonas. We're both women. It's not what?" His voice was still calm, but I caught the edge underneath. "Not inappropriate. Not something you should have mentioned when you called." I felt heat rising in my cheeks. "You're being ridiculous. You're making this into something it's not." "What am I making it into?" Some kind of betrayal, when really I just made a practical decision about where to sleep. Jonas turned back to the dishes, but his movements were sharper now. "A practical decision?" "Yes." I pushed off the counter, moving closer to him. "A practical decision that you're turning into drama because you've never liked Mira. This isn't about Mira. Isn't it? You've been weird about our friendship since day one. You act like she's some kind of threat." "Zephyra," he said my name like a warning. "This is about you not telling me the truth." "I did tell you the truth. You told me you were working late. You told me there was a server emergency. You didn't tell me you were sleeping in another woman's bed." The way he said it made it sound sordid, wrong. I felt my defenses rising like walls. "Because I knew you'd react exactly like this. I knew you'd make it weird and uncomfortable and turn it into some kind of interrogation." "An interrogation?" Jonas set down the dish towel and faced me fully. "I asked you one question. You asked me like you were accusing me of something. I asked you like I was your husband, who deserves to know where you spent the night." From the living room came the sound of the TV being turned up. Eva, our 8-year-old daughter, was supposed to be watching her evening cartoons, but I knew she was listening. She always listened when our voices got sharp. I lowered my voice. "You're being paranoid." "Am I?" "Yes. You're acting like I cheated on you or something, when all I did was sleep in my best friend's bed because I was tired, and it was convenient." "Convenient. Stop repeating everything I say like it's evidence in some kind of trial." Jonas was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, but somehow that made it worse. Do you understand why this bothers me? Because you don't trust me. Because you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth from the beginning. I wanted to argue, but something in his tone stopped me. There was hurt there, real hurt, and it made my chest tight. But admitting he was right felt like admitting I'd done something wrong. And I hadn't. Had I? I didn't lie, I said finally. You didn't tell the whole truth. Because I knew you'd overreact. So you made that decision for both of us. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and Eva's cartoons in the next room. I could feel the conversation slipping away from me, turning into something bigger than it should be. Jonas, I said, trying to make my voice gentle, reasonable. I'm sorry I didn't mention it, but nothing happened. We talked, we went to sleep, I came home. That's it. What did you talk about? The question caught me off guard. What? You said you talked. What about? My mind raced. We had talked. About work. About Jonas. About how he never seemed to really listen when I told him about my day. About how Mira thought I deserved someone who appreciated me more. About how lonely I felt sometimes, even in my own marriage. Just work stuff. Life stuff. Life stuff. Jonas, please stop doing that. Doing what? Acting like everything I say is suspicious. He leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. I want to see your messages with Mira. Excuse me? Your text messages from yesterday. Absolutely not. Why not? Because that's my private communication. Because I have a right to privacy, even from my husband. Even when your husband is trying to understand why his wife spent the night in another woman's bed without telling him. You're being controlling. I'm being confused. You're making this into something it's not. I could hear my voice getting higher, more defensive. You're taking a perfectly innocent situation and turning it into some kind of conspiracy. Then show me the messages. No. Why? Because I don't have to prove my innocence to you. Because I shouldn't have to hand over my phone every time you get insecure about something. Jonas stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something he'd suspected. Okay, he said quietly. Okay? Okay, you're right. You don't have to show me anything. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by unease. Jonas giving up an argument wasn't like him. He was methodical, persistent. He worked through problems until they were solved. Good, I said. I'm glad you understand. I understand perfectly. He moved past me toward the living room, pausing in the doorway. I'm going to read Eva a story and put her to bed. Then I have some papers to grade. Jonas, he turned back. We're okay, right? For a moment his expression softened. I love you, Zephyra. I love our family. But I need you to understand something. What? You always have choices. You chose to stay at Mira's. You chose not to tell me the whole truth. You chose to refuse to show me your messages. He paused. And I get to choose how I respond to those choices. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the kitchen with the sound of running water and the distant murmur of Eva's cartoons. I told myself he was overreacting. I told myself he'd calm down by morning. I told myself I'd done nothing wrong. But as I stood there in our kitchen, surrounded by the life we'd built together, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Something had cracked, and I wasn't sure how to fix it. The next morning, Jonas was gone before I woke up. He'd left coffee in the pot and Eva's lunch packed on the counter, but no note, no kiss goodbye, no acknowledgement that we'd fought the night before. I found Eva in the living room, still in her pajamas, staring at the TV without really watching. Daddy left early, she said without looking at me. He had to get to school early today, sweetheart. Teacher meetings. Are you and Daddy mad at each other? The question hit me like a punch. Eva was sensitive, perceptive in the way that made parenting both wonderful and terrifying. She picked up on everything. Why would you think that? You were talking loud last night, and Daddy looked sad when he made my lunch. I sat down next to her on the couch, smoothing her dark hair. She'd gotten Jonas's coloring, his thoughtful eyes. Sometimes grown-ups disagree about things, but that doesn't mean we don't love each other. What did you disagree about? Boring adult stuff, nothing for you to worry about. She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't convinced. Kids always knew more than they let on. At work, I threw myself into my morning tasks, hoping the familiar routine would settle my nerves. As operations manager for a mid-sized tech firm, I was good at solving problems, managing crises, keeping everything running smoothly. My personal life should be just as manageable. Around 10, Mira appeared at my office door with 2 cups of coffee and her trademark grin. At 33, she had the kind of effortless charisma that made people want to be around her. Marketing suited her perfectly. "Thought you might need caffeine after our sleepover," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Keep your voice down," I hissed, glancing toward the open door. "Why? It's not like we robbed a bank." She took a sip of her latte. "How did Jonas take the news?" "About as well as expected." Meaning he freaked out. He didn't freak out, he just questioned everything. Typical. Mira rolled her eyes. "God forbid you have a life outside of him and Eva. It's not that simple. Isn't it? You're a grown woman. You can sleep wherever you want. I'm a married woman. So, you're not property." I wanted to argue, but part of me agreed with her. Part of me had always agreed with her, which is probably why we'd become such close friends over the past 2 years. Mira saw the world differently than Jonas did. Where he saw obligations and responsibilities, she saw choices and opportunities. "He wanted to see our text messages," I said. "Please tell me you said no." "Of course I said no." "Good. That's controlling behavior, Zeph. Major red flag." "He's not controlling, he's just..." "Just what?" I struggled to find the words. "Careful, cautious. He likes to understand things completely. He likes to control things completely. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you did something spontaneous? Something just for you?" The question stung because I couldn't answer it. When was the last time? Before Eva, maybe. Before the mortgage and the car payments and the careful budgeting that kept our middle-class life stable. "I should get back to work," I said. "Think about what I said." Mira stood, smoothing her skirt. "You deserve to be happy, Zeph. You deserve to feel alive." After she left, I stared at my computer screen without seeing it. Was I unhappy? Was I not feeling alive? Or was Mira planting seeds of discontent where none had existed before? My phone buzzed with a text from Jonas. "Can we talk tonight, after Eva goes to bed?" I typed back, "Of course. Love you." He didn't respond. Around lunch, I found myself scrolling through social media, something I usually didn't have time for during work hours. Almost without thinking, I posted a photo from the night before, Mira and me making silly faces in her bathroom mirror, both of us in pajamas. "Women supporting women," I captioned it. Sometimes you need your best friend to remind you that you're more than just a wife and mum. Friendship, self-care, women empowerment. The likes and comments started immediately. "You go, girl." "Love this." "Friendship goals," my mother commented within minutes. "So proud of my independent daughter. Don't let anyone dim your light." The validation felt good, better than good. It felt like proof that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't done anything wrong. But as the afternoon wore on, I noticed other reactions. Colleagues walking past my office more slowly, glancing at their phones. Hushed conversations that stopped when I approached. At 3, my boss Trent knocked on my door. At 42, he was professional, fair, but always aware of how things looked to upper management. "Zafira, do you have a minute?" "Of course." He closed the door behind him, which immediately put me on edge. "I wanted to talk to you about perception." Perception. Your social media post this morning. It's gotten some attention. My cheeks burned. It's my personal account. I know, and normally, what you post on your personal time is your business. But when you post during work hours, from what appears to be a work computer, it becomes a workplace issue. I was on my lunch break. The timestamp says 11:47 a.m. I had no response to that. Look, Trent continued, I'm not trying to police your friendships or your social media, but we have a company culture to maintain, and posts about supporting women and being more than a wife and mom can be interpreted in ways you might not intend. What kind of ways? Ways that suggest you're not committed to your family responsibilities. Ways that might make clients or colleagues question your judgment. The unfairness of it hit me like a slap. So I'm supposed to pretend I don't have friends, pretend I don't have an identity outside of work and family. I'm suggesting you think more carefully about how you present yourself professionally. After he left, I sat in my office feeling humiliated and angry. Everyone was trying to control me, to put me in a box, to make me smaller than I was. I picked up my phone and called Mira. They're all trying to shame me, I said when she answered. Who? Jonas, Trent, probably half the office by now. For what? For having a sleepover with your best friend? For being independent? For not asking permission for every little thing? You know what this is about, right? What? They're threatened. Jonas is threatened because he knows he's not enough for you. Your boss is threatened because you're not playing the good little corporate wife role. Maybe. Definitely. And you know what you should do? What? Stop apologizing. Stop explaining. You did nothing wrong. When I got home that evening, Jonas was in his study grading papers. Eva was at the kitchen table doing homework, her tongue poking out in concentration, the way it did when she was working hard. How was school, baby? I asked, kissing the top of her head. Good. We learned about fractions. That sounds fun. Daddy helped me with the hard ones when I got home. I glanced toward the study. Jonas was helping with homework, making dinner, maintaining our routine, all while barely speaking to me. It should have made me grateful. Instead, it made me feel like a stranger in my own home. Mom, Eva looked up at me with those serious dark eyes. Are you going to sleep at Miss Mira's house again? The question caught me off guard. Why would you ask that? I heard you tell Daddy you slept there. I was wondering if you liked it better there. My heart clenched. Oh, sweetheart, no, I don't like it better there. I was just tired and it was closer to work. This is my home, with you and Daddy. She nodded, but something in her expression remained uncertain. That night, after Eva was asleep, Jonas and I sat in our living room like polite strangers. He'd chosen the armchair instead of his usual spot next to me on the couch. I've been thinking about what you said, I began. What part? About choices. You're right, I made choices, and I'm sorry I wasn't more upfront about staying at Mira's. He nodded slowly. Thank you for saying that. But I need you to understand something too. I need you to trust me. I need you to believe that I would never do anything to hurt our family. I want to believe that. Then believe it. It's not that simple, Zephyra. Why not? He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. Because trust isn't just about what you do. It's about how you communicate what you do. And lately, I feel like I'm always finding out things after the fact. What things? Your lunch with Mira last month that turned into drinks that turned into you coming home at 11 p.m. I told you about that. After I asked why you were so late. The work conference in Denver where you decided at the last minute to extend your stay. There were networking opportunities that you didn't mention until I asked why your flight was delayed. I felt my defenses rising again. So I'm supposed to run every decision by you first. I'm supposed to be your partner, not someone who gets updates when convenient. You are my partner. Then why do I feel like I'm always the last to know what's happening in your life? The question hung between us, heavy with implications I wasn't ready to examine. I don't know, I said finally. I do. What? Because you've already decided I won't understand. You've already decided I'll disapprove or overreact or try to control you. So you make decisions first and inform me later. That's not true. Isn't it? I wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Because maybe it was true. Maybe I had started seeing Jonas as an obstacle to navigate rather than a partner to include. I love you, I said instead. I love you too. But love isn't enough if we can't trust each other. We can trust each other. Can we? He stood up, running a hand through his dark hair. I'm going to bed. We can talk more tomorrow. As he headed toward the stairs, I called after him. Jonas? He turned. We're going to be okay, right? For a moment, his expression was unreadable. Then he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I hope so, Zeph. I really hope so. But as I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by the photos and memories of our life together, I couldn't shake the feeling that hope wasn't going to be enough. The weekend brought no relief from the tension that had settled over our house like fog. Jonas was polite but distant, going through the motions of family life while keeping an invisible wall between us. Eva picked up on it, becoming clingy and quiet, asking questions I didn't know how to answer. Saturday afternoon, while Jonas took Eva to her soccer game, I found myself at Mira's condo again. I told myself I needed to get out of the house, needed space to think. But really, I needed to feel normal again, to be around someone who didn't look at me like I'd committed a crime. Mira's place was everything mine wasn't. Sleek, modern, uncluttered by the debris of family life. No soccer cleats by the door, no homework scattered on tables, no carefully budgeted grocery lists stuck to the refrigerator. You look terrible, she said, handing me a glass of wine at 2 p.m. Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear. I mean it. You look stressed, exhausted. This whole thing with Jonas is eating you alive. I sank into her white leather couch, the same one where we'd talked until 3 a.m. 2 nights ago. The same one where she'd listened to me complain about feeling invisible in my own marriage, where she'd told me I deserved better, where she'd made me feel like I wasn't crazy for wanting more. He thinks I'm lying to him. Are you? The question startled me. What do you mean? I mean, are you being completely honest with him about us? Us? Mira sat down next to me, closer than necessary. About our friendship, about how much you need it, about how it makes you feel. How does it make me feel? Alive, appreciated, seen. She wasn't wrong. When I was with Mira, I felt like the person I used to be before marriage and motherhood and mortgages. I felt interesting, desirable, worth listening to. That's what friendship is supposed to feel like, I said. Is it? Isn't it? Mira was quiet for a moment, swirling her wine. Can I ask you something? Sure. When's the last time Jonas made you feel the way I do? The question hit me like cold water. That's different. You're my friend. He's my husband. So? So those are different relationships, different kinds of love. Are they? I stared at her, not understanding where this was going. I'm just saying, she continued, maybe Jonas is picking up on something you haven't admitted to yourself yet. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the way you light up when you're with me, the way you text me first thing in the morning and last thing at night, the way you'd rather be here than at home with him. That's not true, isn't it? You're here now. Because I needed space to think. Because you needed to be with someone who understands you. She reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, the same nervous gesture I'd made in the kitchen with Jonas. But when Mira did it, it felt different, intimate, electric. Mira. What? We should talk about something else. Why? Because this feels what? Dangerous. She smiled. Good dangerous or bad dangerous? I didn't answer because I wasn't sure. All I knew was that my heart was racing and my skin felt hot, and I was thinking things I shouldn't be thinking about my best friend. I should go, I said, standing up quickly. Stay. I can't. Jonas and Eva will be home soon. So? You're allowed to have a life outside of them. Not this kind of life. What kind of life? I couldn't answer that because I wasn't sure what was happening between us. All I knew was that it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down at something that would change everything. I have to go, I repeated. But as I drove home, I couldn't stop thinking about the way Mira had looked at me, the way she'd made me feel seen and wanted and alive. I couldn't stop thinking about how easy it would be to fall. That evening, we had dinner at Jonas's mother's house, a weekly tradition that usually felt warm and comfortable but now felt like a performance. Lena Vellum was 61, silver-haired, and sharp-eyed in the way that made lying impossible. She'd raised 2 sons as a single mother and had little patience for nonsense. Jonas's older brother, Greg, was there with his wife, Sarah, and their twin boys. Greg had always been skeptical of me, though he tried to hide it for Jonas's sake. Tonight, his skepticism felt more pointed. "So, Zafira," he said over Lena's famous pot roast, "I heard you had an interesting week." I nearly choked on my water. "Excuse me." "Greg," Jonas said quietly. "What? I'm just making conversation." "What did you hear?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, just some talk around town. You know how people gossip." "What kind of talk?" "The kind that suggests you're exploring new living arrangements." "Greg." This time Jonas's voice carried a warning. "I'm just saying, if you're having problems at home, maybe you should work on them at home instead of broadcasting them on social media." Heat flooded my cheeks. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Your Facebook post about women supporting women and being more than a wife and mum. Pretty clear message there." "It was about friendship." "Was it?" Lena set down her fork with a sharp click. "That's enough, Greg." "Is it, Mom? Because I'm watching my brother's family fall apart while his wife plays house with someone else." "I am not playing house with anyone." "No? Then what would you call sleeping over at another woman's house?" "I would call it friendship, something you apparently don't understand." "I understand friendship. I also understand boundaries." "What boundaries did I cross?" "The ones that married people don't cross." Jonas had gone very still beside me. Ava was staring at her plate, picking at her food with the studied concentration of a child trying to disappear. "You don't know what you're talking about," I said. "Don't I? Because from where I sit, it looks like you're having an emotional affair." The words hit the table like a bomb. Even Greg looked surprised he'd said them out loud. "That's ridiculous," I said, but my voice sounded thin. "Is it? When's the last time you chose Jonas over Mira? When's the last time you came home and told your husband about your day instead of texting your best friend?" I wanted to argue, but the truth was I couldn't remember. Somewhere along the way, Mira had become my first call, my primary confidant, the person I most wanted to share things with. "I think we should go," Jonas said quietly. "No." I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "I think I should defend myself against these accusations." "Zephyra," Lena said gently. "No, I want to know where this is coming from. I want to know why everyone thinks they have the right to judge my friendships." "Because your friendship is affecting your marriage," Greg said bluntly. "My marriage is fine." "Is it? Because Jonas looks miserable. Eva's been asking Sarah if all parents fight as much as you two do, and you just spent the afternoon at another woman's house instead of with your family." The last part hit me like a slap. Eva had been talking to Sarah about our fights. Our 8-year-old daughter was worried enough about her parents' marriage to seek comfort from her aunt. "Eva," I said, turning to my daughter, "Honey, Daddy and I aren't fighting. We're just—" "You are fighting," Eva said quietly, not looking up from her plate. "You're always fighting now, and you're always sad." "I'm not sad, sweetheart." "Yes, you are. And Daddy's sad too. And I drew a picture of our family, but I made Daddy really light because he looks like he's disappearing." The table fell silent. Eva's words hung in the air like an indictment, innocent and devastating. "Ava," Jonas said gently, Why don't you go play with your cousins upstairs? Can I? Of course. After she left, the silence stretched until it became unbearable. She's 8 years old, I said finally. Yes, Lena said, and she's watching her parents' marriage fall apart. Our marriage is not falling apart. Then what would you call it? Greg asked. I looked around the table at these people who had become my family, who had welcomed me and loved me and supported me for 12 years. Now they were looking at me like I was a stranger, like I was the problem. I would call it going through a rough patch, I said. Rough patches don't involve sleepovers with other people, Greg said. She's my friend. She's not just your friend anymore, is she? The question hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. Because maybe Greg was right. Maybe Mira wasn't just my friend anymore. Maybe she'd become something else, something that didn't have a name, something that was threatening everything I'd built. I think we should go, Jonas said again. This time I didn't argue. The drive home was silent except for Eva's quiet humming from the back seat. When we got home, Jonas went straight to his study. I helped Eva get ready for bed, reading her the same story I'd read her 100 times before, trying to pretend everything was normal. Mom, she said as I tucked her in. Yes, baby? Are you going to get divorced? The question hit me like a physical blow. Why would you ask that? Because Tommy's parents got divorced and they used to fight all the time too. Daddy and I aren't going to get divorced. Promise? I wanted to promise. I wanted to give her the certainty she needed, the security she deserved. But the word stuck in my throat because I wasn't sure I could keep that promise anymore. I love you very much, I said instead. And so does Daddy. No matter what happens, we both love you more than anything in the world. But are you going to get divorced? I hope not, sweetheart. I really hope not. It wasn't the answer she wanted, but it was the only honest one I could give. Later that night, I sat in my bedroom staring at my phone. Mira had texted 3 times, asking if I was okay, telling me she was thinking about me, saying she was there if I needed to talk. I started to type a response, then stopped. I started again, then deleted it. Because Greg was right. Mira wasn't just my friend anymore. She'd become something else, something that made me question everything about my life, everything about my marriage, everything about who I was supposed to be. And I wasn't sure I was strong enough to walk away from that, even if it cost me everything. Monday morning brought an unusual quiet to our house. Jonas was up before dawn, moving through his routine with mechanical precision. I found him in the kitchen, already dressed for school, organizing a stack of papers with the same methodical care he brought to everything. You're up early, I said, pouring myself coffee. Couldn't sleep. Want to talk about it? He looked up from his papers, and for a moment I saw something in his eyes that made my stomach drop. Not anger, not hurt, but something colder, something that looked like resignation. Not right now. I have a faculty meeting before classes start. Jonas? What? About yesterday, at your mum's. Greg was out of line. Was he? You know he was. He had no right to say those things. Jonas was quiet for a long moment, still organizing his papers. The thing about Greg is, he's not subtle. He says what everyone else is thinking. What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe you should ask yourself why multiple people are coming to the same conclusion about your relationship with Mira. Because people love to gossip. Because they love to tear down women who don't fit into their neat little boxes. Or because they can see something you're refusing to acknowledge. I felt heat rising in my cheeks. What am I refusing to acknowledge? Jonas finally looked at me directly. That you're having an emotional affair. That's ridiculous. Is it? When's the last time you confided in me instead of her? When's the last time you chose to spend time with me instead of her? When's the last time you looked at me the way you look at her? I don't look at her anyway. You do. You light up when she texts. You get excited when you're going to see her. You come home from time with her glowing like you've just had the best day of your life. She's my friend. I'm allowed to enjoy spending time with my friend. Are you? Because it seems like you enjoy it more than spending time with your family. The accusation hung between us like a wall. I wanted to deny it, but I couldn't find the words. I'm going to work, Jonas said, gathering his papers. We're not done talking about this, aren't we? Because it seems like you've already made up your mind about what's more important to you. After he left, I sat in our kitchen, feeling like the walls were closing in. Everyone was against me. Everyone was trying to make me feel guilty for having a friendship, for having someone who understood me, for having something in my life that was just mine. At work, I threw myself into my tasks with desperate focus. But around 10, Mira appeared at my office door again, this time looking concerned. You look terrible, she said, closing the door behind her. Everyone keeps telling me that. What happened yesterday? You left so suddenly. I told her about dinner at Lena's, about Greg's accusations, about Ava's questions. With each detail, Mira's expression grew darker. They're ganging up on you, she said when I finished. Maybe they have a point. What point? Maybe I have been neglecting my family. Or maybe your family has been taking you for granted for so long that they can't handle you having something that's yours. Mira. What? I'm serious. You've spent 12 years being the perfect wife and mother, and the minute you have a friendship that makes you happy, they want to destroy it. It's not that simple. Isn't it? Think about it, Zeph. When's the last time Jonas asked about your dreams, your goals, your feelings about anything other than family logistics? I wanted to argue, but she wasn't wrong. Most of our conversations lately had been about schedules, responsibilities, household management. When had we stopped talking about ideas, about hopes, about the things that made us who we were? He's busy, I said. We're both busy. Too busy for your marriage. That's not fair. What's not fair is him making you feel guilty for having a friendship that fulfills you. Greg thinks we're having an emotional affair. Mira was quiet for a moment. What do you think? I think that's crazy. Is it? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? I mean, maybe we should be honest about what this is between us. What is? This connection, this intimacy, this feeling that we understand each other in ways no one else does. My heart started racing. Mira, we're friends. Are we? Just friends? What else would we be? She leaned forward in her chair, her eyes intense. We could be whatever we want to be. I'm married. To someone who doesn't appreciate you. To someone who makes you feel guilty for being yourself. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time Jonas made you feel the way I do? You're my friend, he's my husband. Those are different things. Why do they have to be? I stared at her, not understanding. Because that's how relationships work. Says who? Says the same people who think women should be grateful for whatever attention they get. The same people who think you should shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Mira, stop. Why? Because I'm saying things you don't want to hear? Or because I'm saying things you do want to hear, but you're too scared to admit it? I couldn't answer because I didn't know. All I knew was that my carefully ordered world was spinning out of control, and I didn't know how to stop it. That afternoon, I got a text from Jonas. Working late tonight, don't wait up. It was the first time in our marriage he'd worked late without explaining why. Usually he told me about faculty meetings, parent conferences, grading deadlines. This was just a statement, cold and factual. I texted back, "Everything okay?" No response. At 5, instead of going home to an empty house and a daughter who would ask questions I couldn't answer, I found myself back at Mira's condo. "He's punishing you," she said, when I told her about Jonas's text. "He's not punishing me, he's working. He's sending a message. He's showing you what life will be like if you don't fall in line. That's not what this is. Isn't it? He's withdrawing, making you feel his absence, making you choose between your independence and his approval. Maybe he just needs space. Maybe he's manipulating you. The word hit me like a slap. Jonas doesn't manipulate people. Everyone manipulates people, Zeph. The question is whether they do it consciously or unconsciously. He's the most honest person I know. Honest people can still be controlling. I wanted to argue, but doubt was creeping in. Was Jonas trying to control me? Was his hurt genuine, or was it a way to make me feel guilty for wanting something for myself? I should go home, I said. Why? To an empty house? To wait for a husband who's making you pay for having a friend? To check on Eva? Eva's fine. She's probably at your mother-in-law's, being told stories about how her mother is destroying the family. The casual cruelty of the comment took my breath away. That's not fair. What's not fair is everyone trying to make you feel guilty for being happy. I'm not happy. I'm confused and scared, and I feel like I'm losing my mind. You're not losing your mind. You're waking up. To what? To the fact that you deserve better, to the fact that you don't have to settle for a marriage that makes you feel invisible, to the fact that there are people in this world who see you and value you and want to be with you. Mira. What? Are you talking about you? She was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. What if I am? Then we need to stop this conversation. Why? Because I'm married, because I have a daughter, because this is wrong. Says who? Says everyone, says society, says my conscience. Your conscience or your fear? I couldn't answer that, because maybe it was fear. Fear of losing everything I'd built, everything I'd worked for, everything that defined who I was, but also fear of wanting something I couldn't have, something that would destroy everything good in my life. I have to go, I said. But as I drove home through the darkening streets, I couldn't stop thinking about the way Mira had looked at me, the way she'd made me feel seen and wanted and alive. And I couldn't stop thinking about how easy it would be to say yes to whatever she was offering, even if it meant losing everything else. When I got home, Eva was indeed at Lena's. The house was empty, quiet, filled with the ghosts of all the conversations Jonas and I weren't having. I found myself in his study, looking at the neat stacks of papers, the carefully organized files, the calendar marked with meetings and deadlines, and all the responsibilities that made up his life. On his desk was a locked folder I'd never seen before, labeled Archive A in his careful handwriting. I tried the handle, but it was locked. I looked for a key, but found nothing. What was in that folder? What was Jonas archiving? And why did I have the terrible feeling that whatever it was about me? The investor event was supposed to be my moment to shine. Our company was courting a major client, and as operations manager, I was scheduled to give a presentation on our efficiency metrics. I'd worked for weeks preparing, knowing that success could mean a promotion, more responsibility, more respect. I'd invited Jonas as my +1, hoping that seeing me in my professional element might remind him of who I was beyond wife and mother. Maybe it would help him understand why my friendship with Mira mattered so much, because she saw this side of me, valued this side of me. But the morning of the event, Jonas texted, "Can't make it tonight. Something came up." No explanation, no apology, no suggestion we reschedule. Just another withdrawal, another absence, another reminder that I was on my own. "Bring me instead," Mira suggested when I told her about Jonas's cancellation. "I'd love to see you in action." I hesitated. Bringing Mira as my date to a work function felt like crossing a line, making a statement I wasn't sure I was ready to make. But the alternative was going alone, looking pathetic, having to explain to everyone why my husband couldn't be bothered to support my career. "Okay," I said, "but just as friends." "Of course, just friends." The event was held at the downtown Marriott, an elegant ballroom filled with investors, clients, and colleagues. I wore my best dress, the navy blue one that made me feel confident and professional. Mira wore black, sleek and sophisticated, drawing admiring glances from every man in the room. "You look amazing," she whispered as we found our table. "Thanks, so do you." We make a good team. The way she said it made my stomach flutter. There was something possessive in her tone, something that suggested we were more than colleagues, more than friends. During cocktail hour, I introduced Mira to my coworkers, watching their reactions carefully. Most were polite but curious, clearly wondering who this beautiful woman was and why she was here instead of my husband. "Where's Jonas tonight?" asked Patricia from accounting. "He had a prior commitment," I said smoothly. "Lucky for us," Mira said, slipping her arm through mine. "I get to be Zephyr's date instead." The word date hung in the air like a flare. Patricia's eyebrows rose. Other conversations quieted as people turned to look at us. "Mira," I said quietly. "What?" "I'm just saying I'm glad I could be here to support you." But the way she was looking at me, the way her hand lingered on my arm, the way she positioned herself between me and the other guests, it all suggested something more intimate than support. When it came time for my presentation, I felt confident, prepared. I'd practiced the speech dozens of times, knew the numbers by heart, understood exactly how to position our company's strengths. But as I stood at the podium, looking out at the audience, I saw something that made my blood run cold. In the back of the room, partially hidden behind a pillar, was Jonas. He wasn't supposed to be here. He'd said he couldn't make it, but there he was, watching me with an expression I couldn't read. I stumbled over my opening lines, distracted by his presence, by the questions racing through my mind. How long had he been there? What had he seen? What had he heard? I managed to get through the presentation, but I knew it wasn't my best work. The confidence I'd felt earlier had evaporated, replaced by a creeping sense of dread. After the applause died down, I looked toward the back of the room again, but Jonas was gone. "You were amazing," Mira said, appearing at my side with 2 glasses of champagne. "Did you see him?" "See who?" "Jonas. He was here." "Where?" "In the back, by the pillar." Mira looked around the room. "I don't see him." "He was there. I know he was there." "Maybe you imagined it. You were nervous about the presentation." "I didn't imagine it." But doubt crept in. Had I seen Jonas, or had my guilty conscience conjured him up? Had he really been there, or was I so paranoid about being caught that I was seeing things? "Let's get some air," Mira suggested. We stepped onto the hotel's balcony, the city lights twinkling below us. The champagne was making me dizzy, or maybe it was the adrenaline from the presentation, or the fear that Jonas had witnessed something that would confirm all his suspicions. "You're shaking," Mira observed. "I'm fine." "No, you're not. You're terrified." "I'm not terrified. I'm just..." "Just what?" "Confused. About everything." Mira moved closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, feel the warmth of her skin. "What are you confused about?" "This. Us. What we're doing." "We're not doing anything wrong." "Aren't we?" "We're 2 adults enjoying each other's company." "It feels like more than that." "Would that be so terrible?" The question hung in the air between us. Would it be terrible, or would it be the most honest thing I'd done in years? "I'm married," I said weakly. "To someone who doesn't appreciate you, to someone who makes you feel guilty for being yourself." "He loves me." "Does he? Because love isn't supposed to feel like a prison." "It's not a prison." "Isn't it?" "When's the last time you felt free? When's the last time you felt alive?" "I feel alive with you." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Mira smiled, triumphant. "Then why are you fighting this?" "Because it's wrong." "Says who?" "Says everyone. Says my daughter. Says my conscience." "Your conscience or your fear?" Before I could answer, she leaned in and kissed me. It was soft, tentative, nothing like the aggressive kisses in movies. It was gentle and sweet, and everything I hadn't realized I'd been wanting. For a moment, I kissed her back. For a moment, I let myself feel what I'd been denying for months. For a moment, I was free. Then reality crashed back in, and I pulled away. "We can't," I said. "We just did. This is wrong. This is honest. This is adultery. This is love." The word hit me like a physical blow. Love. Was that what this was? Was that what I'd been feeling? What I'd been denying? What I'd been afraid to name? "I have to go," I said. "Zephyra, wait." But I was already moving, already fleeing, already running from the choice I wasn't ready to make. I drove home in a daze, my lips still tingling from Mira's kiss, my mind reeling from her declaration of love. Was she right? Was this love? Or was it just infatuation, rebellion, a midlife crisis dressed up in romantic language? The house was dark when I arrived. Jonas's car was in the driveway, but all the lights were off. I crept inside, hoping to avoid another confrontation, another conversation I wasn't ready to have. But as I reached the top of the stairs, I heard Eva's voice from her bedroom, soft and worried. "Daddy, why are you sad?" I froze, listening. "I'm not sad, sweetheart," Jonas replied, but his voice was thick with emotion. "Yes, you are. You've been sad for days. Is it because of Mom?" "What makes you say that?" "Because you don't talk to each other anymore. And she's never home. And when she's home, she's always on her phone. Your mom loves you very much. But does she love you?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. I pressed myself against the wall, hardly breathing. "I think so," Jonas said finally. "But sometimes people love each other and still can't figure out how to be happy together. Are you going to get divorced?" "I don't know, Eva, I hope not. But I need you to know that no matter what happens between your mom and me, we both love you more than anything in the world. Will I have to choose who to live with? Let's not worry about that right now, okay? Let's just focus on getting through each day." I heard him kiss her goodnight, heard her bedroom door close, heard his footsteps in the hallway. I slipped into our bedroom before he could see me, pretending to be asleep when he came in. But I lay awake for hours, thinking about Eva's questions, about Jonas's answers, about the kiss that had changed everything, and about the choice I was going to have to make. Because Mira was right about one thing. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, hurting everyone around me, while I figured out what I wanted. I was going to have to choose. The question was whether I was brave enough to choose love over security, passion over stability, honesty over convenience, or whether I was going to lose everything while trying to have it all. The next morning, my phone buzzed with the text from Jonas. "We need to talk tomorrow. It's important." Not tonight. Tomorrow. Like he was giving me time to prepare, time to get my story straight, time to decide who I wanted to be. I stared at the message for a long time, my hands shaking. Tomorrow, everything was going to change. I just wasn't sure if it would be for better or worse. I spent the next day in a state of suspended animation, going through the motions at work while my mind raced with possibilities. What did Jonas want to talk about? Had he been at the investor event? Had he seen something that confirmed his suspicions? Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. Mira had texted several times, asking if I was okay, saying we needed to discuss what happened on the balcony. I couldn't bring myself to respond. I couldn't face the conversation about what that kiss meant, what she wanted from me, what I was willing to give. Eva was spending the night at Lena's, an arrangement that felt ominous, like the calm before a storm. When I got home from work, the house felt different, charged with the electricity of impending confrontation. Jonas was in his study, but the door was open. I could see him sitting at his desk, a manila folder open in front of him, papers spread out in neat rows, the mysterious Archive A folder, finally unlocked. "Jonas," I called from the doorway. He looked up, and I was struck by how tired he looked, how much older he seemed than just a week ago. There were dark circles under his eyes, new lines around his mouth. "Come in," he said. "We need to talk." I sat in the chair across from his desk. the same chair where I'd helped Eva with homework countless times, where we'd planned family vacations and discussed household budgets and made all the small decisions that comprised a life together. "What's all this?" I asked, gesturing to the papers. "Evidence," he said simply. "Evidence of what?" "Of the affair you've been having with Mira Chen." The words hit me like a physical blow. Not emotional affair or inappropriate friendship. Affair, full stop. As if what I'd been doing had a name, a definition, a legal meaning. "That's not what this is," I said automatically. "Isn't it?" He picked up a piece of paper from the desk. "Text message from you to Mira, sent at 11:47 p.m. on March 15th. I can't stop thinking about what you said, about deserving better, about feeling alive. Text message from Mira to you, sent at 11:52 p.m. You do deserve better. You deserve to be with someone who sees how amazing you are." My mouth went dry. "How do you have those?" "Your phone automatically backs up to our shared cloud account, the same account we set up when Eva was born so we could both access family photos. You've been spying on me. I've been trying to understand why my wife has been lying to me." He picked up another paper. "Calendar entry from your phone, March 18th, lunch with M. But your credit card shows charges at Chez Laurent at 7 p.m. and an Uber to Mira's address at 9:30 p.m. We extended lunch into dinner. And then you went to her apartment to talk until 2 a.m., according to the Uber receipt for your ride home." I felt like I was drowning, like every piece of evidence was another weight dragging me under. "You've been tracking my every move. I've been trying to figure out why my wife has been disappearing from our marriage." He picked up a photograph, and my heart stopped. It was from the investor event, taken from across the room with what must have been a telephoto lens. Mira and me on the balcony, her hands on my face, our lips touching. "You were there," I whispered. "I was there. I wanted to surprise you, to support your presentation. Instead, I got to watch my wife kiss another woman." "Jonas, I'm not finished." His voice was calm, methodical, like he was presenting evidence in a courtroom. "Bank records showing charges at restaurants, bars and hotels on dates when you said you were working late. Phone records showing hundreds of text messages and phone calls to Mira's number, often late at night or early in the morning. Social media posts that reference your special friendship and your need to be more than a wife and mother." "You're taking everything out of context." "Am I? Because from where I sit, this looks like a comprehensive record of an extramarital affair." "It's not an affair. We haven't slept together." "Haven't you?" The question hung in the air. Had we? Not physically, not in the way that would hold up in divorce court, but emotionally, intimately, in ways that might matter more than physical contact. "No," I said firmly, "we haven't." "But you want to." I couldn't answer that because the truth would destroy everything. "You want to," he continued, "and she wants to, and the only thing stopping you is the inconvenience of being married to me." "That's not true." "Isn't it? Because I've been watching you for weeks, Zephyra. Watching you light up when she texts, watching you find excuses to see her, watching you choose her over me and Eva again and again." "I would never choose anyone over Eva." "You already have. You've chosen a fantasy over your daughter's stability. You've chosen excitement over her security. You've chosen your own happiness over her need for an intact family. That's not fair. What's not fair is making an 8-year-old child wonder if her parents are going to get divorced because her mother can't stay away from her best friend. Ava doesn't know anything about this. Ava knows everything about this. She knows you're never home. She knows we don't talk anymore. She knows you're always on your phone. She knows something is wrong, and she's blaming herself." The words hit me like a slap. She's not blaming herself. "She asked me yesterday if you didn't love us anymore. She wanted to know if she'd done something wrong, if that's why you were always somewhere else." Tears started in my eyes. I never wanted to hurt her. "But you have hurt her. You've hurt all of us. I was trying to figure things out. By having an affair. It's not an affair. Then what is it? I struggled to find words that would make sense, that would explain what I'd been feeling without condemning myself. It's a friendship that got complicated. Complicated how? I don't know. I was lonely, and she understood me, and it felt good to be appreciated. So you decided to blow up our family. I didn't decide anything. It just happened. Nothing just happened, Zephyra. You made choices. You chose to confide in her instead of me. You chose to spend time with her instead of us. You chose to kiss her instead of coming home to your family. One kiss. It was one kiss. One kiss that you didn't stop. One kiss that you didn't confess. One kiss that you would have repeated if you hadn't gotten scared. He wasn't wrong. If I hadn't panicked, if I hadn't run, would I have gone back to Mira's apartment? Would I have let her make love to me? Would I have crossed that final line? I'm sorry, I said. Are you? Or are you just sorry you got caught? I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I hurt Eva. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen. And now we have to decide what comes next. What do you mean? Jonas closed the folder and looked at me directly. I mean, you have to choose. Choose what? Choose whether you want to be married to me or whether you want to be with Mira. It's not that simple. It is that simple. You can't have both. You can't keep one foot in our marriage and one foot in whatever this is with her. What if I choose you? What if I end things with Mira? Can you? What do you mean? I mean, can you really end it? Can you go back to being just friends? Can you forget what it felt like to kiss her? I couldn't answer because I didn't know. The kiss had changed something fundamental, had opened a door I wasn't sure I could close. I could try, I said. Trying isn't enough, not anymore. Then what do you want from me? I want you to be honest. With me, with yourself, with Eva. I want you to stop pretending this is just a friendship. I want you to admit what this really is and make a decision based on that honesty. And if I choose her? Then we get divorced. I file for custody of Eva. We divide our assets and we move on with our lives. You'd really do that. I'd really do that. Even though we've been together for 12 years, even though we have a daughter together, even though we promised to love each other for better or worse. The woman I promised to love doesn't exist anymore. The woman I married would never have done this to our family. I'm still the same person. No, you're not. You're someone who lies to her husband, who neglects her daughter, who chooses a fantasy over reality. You're someone I don't recognize. The words cut deep because they weren't said in anger. They were said with sadness, with the kind of finality that comes from a decision already made. How long do I have? I asked. To decide? Yes. You don't. You've already decided. You decided when you kissed her. You decided when you chose to keep seeing her after I asked you to stop. You decided when you brought her to your work event as your date. So what happens now? Jonas reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a large envelope. Now I give you these. What are they? Divorce papers, filed this morning. You'll be served officially at your office tomorrow. The room spun around me. You're divorcing me. You divorced me the minute you kissed her. This is just the paperwork. Jonas, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can't do anything, Zephyra. You can do something. You can choose to fight for our marriage. But that would mean ending things with Mira completely. And we both know you're not going to do that. You don't know what I'm going to do. Don't I? You're going to leave here and go straight to her apartment. You're going to tell her about this conversation. You're going to cry and she's going to comfort you and you're going to end up in her bed. That's not true, isn't it? I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words wouldn't come, because he was right. I was already thinking about calling Mira, about needing her comfort, about wanting her to tell me that everything would be okay. I love you, I said desperately. I know you do. But you love her more. That's not true. Then prove it. Walk away from her. Right now. Tonight. Forever. Jonas. That's what I thought. He stood up, gathering the papers from his desk. I'll be staying at Greg's tonight. Eva will stay with my mother until we figure out custody arrangements. You can't take my daughter away from me. I'm not taking her away. I'm protecting her from a situation that's become toxic. This is my house too. Yes, it is, and you're welcome to stay in it. But I won't be here, and neither will Eva, until you decide who you want to be. This is insane. You're destroying our family over a kiss. I'm not destroying anything. You already did that. He moved toward the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, Zephyra, I hope you're happy. I hope whatever you find with Mira is worth what you're giving up. Jonas, wait. But he was already gone, leaving me alone in his study, surrounded by the evidence of my betrayal, holding divorce papers that made everything real. I sat there for a long time, staring at the legal documents that would end my marriage, end my family, end everything I'd thought I wanted. Then I picked up my phone and called Mira. Because Jonas was right, I'd already made my choice. I just hadn't been honest enough to admit it until now. The next day, as I sat in my office trying to focus on quarterly reports, Trent knocked on my door with an expression I'd never seen before. Zephyra, there's someone here to see you. Who? A process server. My blood turned to ice. Send him in. The man who entered was professional, polite, and utterly impersonal. Zephyra Vellum? Yes. You've been served. He handed me the envelope and left without another word. I sat there holding the official divorce papers, my hands shaking, my career and my marriage crumbling simultaneously. Through my office window, I could see my colleagues whispering, pointing, speculating about what kind of trouble I was in. And in that moment, I realized that Jonas had been right about everything. I'd had choices. I'd made choices. And now I had to live with the consequences.